Hi, it's Merryl from my mystery school, and today we're going to do an astrology reading for Lena. She's written, I can't articulate myself. I feel there's soul versus ego, and I need to trust myself over others. I worry about how people perceive me, childlike and small, compared to how I really am. The other thing she says is, I cry when I'm seen. Lena works in a creative field, and she says the work she wants to produce is a big step up, and she really wants her creations to be taken seriously. So I wanted to have a look at Lena's birth chart to see why she can't articulate herself. She has trouble trusting others, and why she cries when she's seen. When someone says they struggle to articulate themselves, you want to maybe look at the sun and also the Mercury placement. So we have the sun just here, right on the gateway of the 12th house, in the 11th house in Libra. It's supported here by Neptune in the first house, which is very creative. And it's also got a really nice link up here to this one that we'll talk about later, the North Node and the asteroid goddess Vesta, here in the 10th house. Lena's Mercury is right here, in the 12th house, in the sign of Scorpio. And that could be a big reason why she's struggling to articulate herself. Mercury is the planet that tells us about communication, how your brain works, how your thinking works, how you express your ideas. And for Lena, it needs to be expressed through Scorpio, which is a water sign, very deep, mystical, very protective. Of all the water signs, Cancer and Pisces, the Scorpion has the hardest shell and is most vulnerable inside. So we know she's very vulnerable when it comes to expressing her ideas. It's also very emotional. Scorpio wants to get to the core. And so with this placement, there's no time for small talk at all. This Scorpio would want to get down to the absolute core, to a place it can trust. When you have Mercury in a water sign, it often means you need to feel it before you can say it. And this 12th house position is the furthest, most mysterious, least tangible, deepest water of the whole of the wheel. So when Lena needs to express, she's got to dive down to the deepest places. Scorpio is a sign that's able to access the really dark parts, a really deep reality, and an emotional truth and honesty. So the other side of the coin for that is it knows about revenge and betrayal and deception. There's a sense of expressing herself will expose a really deep place, a really dark place, a place of secrets. Mercury in Scorpio in the 12th house would be very, very private. But we have these other parts of Lena, the sun in Libra, just right there in the 11th house, and the moon here just making in Sagittarius. Very light and buoyant, eager to please, very sweet. So it's at odds with this dark place where she has to go if she's going to articulate her ideas. The ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and she has Pluto right here, also in the 12th house, and conjunct Lilith and her sun. Pluto really has a strong dominance over the sun here. It's a very heavy planet. It rules oppression and the secrets and the family patterns that are held there. This tells me that there was some sort of dominating force or a dominating energy over Lena expressing her sun. Her sun is her natural talents and abilities, her natural gifts. You know, when you're in the sun and you're just yourself, to really have self-acceptance. It's Pluto here puts a strong, heavy energy, and it either makes her feel terribly exposed to shine, or she's holding this kind of power. Pluto is very charismatic and very powerful. And for a Libran, that power needs to be expressed through Venus, through self-worth, through beauty, through artistic, peaceful, graceful endeavours. Libra is beauty, grace, truth and justice. So channeling this energy through Libra means fully owning and actualising what is fair and reasonable and peaceful and harmonious. It's a challenge for Lena. It's something that she'll get better at as she gets older, because as I said, there's supportive aspects coming from these other placements. But it ties into our story here of articulating yourself can make you feel exposed, can make you feel your deepest, darkest places will be revealed, and that you'll be left very vulnerable. It's possible that concern you have that people perceive me as childlike and small compared to how I really am, because you've got Pluto next to your sun. You exude a kind of a power, a magnetism. And I would think harnessing your Pluto will also strengthen the beautiful depth and truth and creativity that comes through this Scorpio Mercury placement. Lilith here, this is the asteroid goddess Lilith, is in the same area as the sun, occupying the same space as the sun and Pluto, just right here at the gateway of this 11th and 12th house. Lilith's story, she paid very dearly for speaking up and demanding to express herself in her natural wild state. She was exiled. And that's the feeling you get here, that anything coming from this place risks exile. The other thing we've got going on here with Mercury in this 12th house position is the aspect it has over here to Chiron. In the 6th house in Taurus. This is an opposition, meaning the energies are coming from two different places and need to find a way to let the other be heard and expressed. So it can cause a conflict, but it's also a way of harnessing the gift that Mercury has here, because Chiron is a really integrating, healing, accepting energy. Wherever you have Chiron in your chart is a place where you hold a really deep wound. So when Lena expresses, the wound gets opened. With Chiron in Taurus, the wound is held in the body, in believing in yourself and having self-worth, having healthy boundaries or not having healthy boundaries, in knowing how to be practical in ways to heal yourself. People born between around March 1977 to March 1984 all have Chiron in Taurus. And it would bring up the body image as being an issue, about knowing what is mine. Taurus is about this is mine, but with a wound there, it's been painful to claim what is yours in a material, physical sense. So again, this repeats that theme of how wounding and vulnerable it is to articulate. And what she has to articulate is coming from the deepest well of the soul and the emotions. She would also find, with this opposition, that the people she's articulating it to need to have some kind of Chiron strength or energy or imprint. Chiron is the misfit of the zodiac. He's a centaur, half horse, half man. He was a brilliant healer, a shaman, a wanderer, a seeker. He was a wise man and a sage, and he was a great mentor. So there's a wounding about finding a mentor and a voice. I guess Taurus also rules the voice. So yeah, you might find your audience when you articulate either think that you're a real kook coming absolutely left field and you're speaking different languages, or there'll be people who understand the fringe, who know how to bridge. Chiron is a bridge. I would recommend to strengthen this as an alliance rather than an opposition is use your voice in unusual or different ways. Try chanting, try singing, speaking in funny voices. See if sound healing or regular affirmation or some way of using your voice that lets you move it in different directions. And I just think that will give a home to the overwhelm that happens up here in the 12th house. One thing, Lena, you will hear truth in other people's voices, or you'll feel it in your own body around your throat. And that's a really good skill to have, because something we have to do over here is help you protect this place, but still get your ideas out. So I would say, if someone's not speaking truth to you, or if someone is trying to take advantage of your vulnerability, your empathy will come through hearing it in their voice and you feeling it in your body. That will be a really good guide to you locking down on, like, literally your intuitive voice. In some ways, this is what you were talking about when you were saying it's like a battle between the soul and the ego, because this place is definitely the soul. The 6th house isn't traditionally where I would say ego comes from, but Taurus has to have absolutely healthy ego, healthy boundaries. I know what is mine. And I mentioned earlier, you've got this lovely moon placement in Sag, squeezing in the last little bit of the 12th house. This symbol here is Mars. This is a kind of a fiery combination that could be really kooky, really funny. You could mouth off much more than you thought you would, but the moon needs safety and Mars wants to fight. So there's something here about silencing yourself when it's time to speak up, or speaking up very rashly and then feeling again utterly exposed. Mars with the moon is kind of uncomfortable. Your energy can go up and down. You can really steam and seethe and fume under the collar. And your direction can get a bit muddy. Sagittarius is the archer. And he's awesome when he's flying one arrow in one direction. But this can mean you might be throwing a few arrows in all directions. One thing that might be good to help you focus, I thought, was archery. If you took up archery, or even some team sports, something that shifts and channels the energy, because if you're not aware of how the moon is activating your nervous system, Mars will also bring overwhelm and anxiety. So it's a way of being able to tune into your body reactions and read the situation. Catch yourself out before you feel closed down or silenced. The good news is this green sun right here, that's called the progressed sun. And the progressed sun is moving now over this year. It will be crossing over your Mars and your moon placement here in the 12th house. What that means is there is a growing up, there is a maturity. It gives you the inner resources and inner strength. It builds character. It's actually crossing over there this year. But over the next 4 years, in 4 years' time, the progressed sun will cross the ascendant. And I imagine that will be you really, really stepping into your truth, able to show who you are. So there's a lot of growth that you're having, inner growth, that will be showing out in the world over this next 4 years. If you want to be stepping up, this is something about choosing your battles, knowing how to protect yourself when you need it, and really, especially in Sag, fighting for social justice. Channeling, you might find your voice if you find the cause. Actually, that's what this makes me think, that you may, when you really hone in on the cause that you're after, the cause that impassions you, that fills your spirit, and using Scorpio's ability to sift things down to the nuts and bolts, that might be a more comfortable way for you to articulate yourself. But I can see you'll need time to get there. You need time to sift through and finding your cause, which is these two. This is really great for social justice, for wildlife, for refugees, for immigrants. And that also fits in with our Chiron theme, because he also rules those areas. The other thing to draw on, Lena, is looking at the place in the chart where your natural gifts just flow and flourish. And that's up here, this little horseshoe called the North Node, and it's expressed through Leo, a really creative sign. Significantly, it's close enough to this position of the chart, the MC, or midheaven, to really make this one convincing. Down here we have the South Node in the 4th house in Aquarius, and these two poles are connected. The North Node pushes you to progress and grow beyond what you thought you knew, just as the 10th house and this point, the midheaven, follow that same theme. The moon's nodes are also a karmic placement. They tell us something about your soul journey and the work you've got to do in this lifetime, in this incarnation. There is a sense of karmic destiny going on with all of this stuff in the 12th house. The 12th house is the place of ancestors. And as I said, it's the least tangible, the thin veil between the worlds. So Lena's senses, her psychic senses, her knowingness is right on point. And she has so many planets in here, there's a lot of support coming through her ancestors. And it feeds into this karmic destiny. So what we could imagine with a South Node being in Aquarius in the 4th house is that there's past life connections with being part of a group, potentially family groups, where your individual accountability was measured by the group. It's possible this group or this family group was a bit unusual, outside of the norm, or that Lena's experience in that group was different to what was expected in order to stay safe and on the homeland. There can be a theme of education or beliefs that are at odds with the rest of the community. Lena's North Node is in Leo, and Leo is a very individualistic sign. In many ways, it's the sign least likely to think about the concerns of the group first. Its job is to be that proud lion at the front of the pack. The destiny or the purpose drives Lena out into that spotlight to stand out from the crowd. The inclusion of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, the goddess of the eternal flame of spirit, to me means that she again really has to find her cause, find what makes her spirit rise, and that coming from that place can overcome the personal fear of what it was like to speak out in the past and be a bit different. There's an interesting pressure that's on these nodes, and it's Chiron. Chiron is at the midpoint between these two places. And if this is the pulls of like your karmic destiny and your purpose, one holding you back is like, oh, you've got to, in Aquarius, you've got to fit in with the group. You've got to think of a universal way rather than an individualistic way. And this one saying, no, get out there loud and proud. Show yourself. And this karmic wound comes down to Chiron. This is called a skipped step, when a planet is opposite the node, not opposite, square the nodes at the midpoint. It suggests to me there's a life path or a lifetime that you've had, or a soul lesson that before you can really, really flourish here, you need to heal this. The pain of not having sovereignty over your own body and your own boundaries and your voice. So we really have to look at how can we use Chiron to integrate that voice that comes from the deep well of the soul, of the emotions. Chiron did his own thing. He was quite introverted, and he was maimed and disfigured. He also had a wound of the body that became a wound of the soul. So he hung out at his cave a lot of the time, and he did travels to learn from masters, and became a master and mentor himself. So I expect this, you almost have a search, a real desire to find this Chironic person, this Chironic mentor that can pull you through. And after 50, here's Chiron now in the sky. After 50, Chiron meets up here. And you really do find your mentoring voice. And it will be when you're mentoring others. But that search for truth and authenticity in the 6th house, it's in a workplace environment. I expect you have to look at the fringes, the people who are Chironic, who really understand the soulful meaning behind what you're expressing, who are able to empathize and who are able to bridge that communication for you. Anyone that's too logical or too material, I think that will just block you up. So this one continues that theme, that there's kind of a soul path, a soul destiny in getting these creations and this pride and self-pride out. You've got an opportunity in this lifetime, because Chiron is your missed step, to really integrate and heal what is potentially a deeply ancient, old karmic wound that may have run through your ancestors and your family lines for a long time. And there's a couple of things coming up that can help you with that. One, in the next few months, the transiting South Node will be here. It will activate Neptune. It will activate a dream or a wish or a desire. It might have been something you've been working on that you thought you had to let go, and there may have been a sacrifice in this. It will highlight a place you've sacrificed. But here in the 1st house, it will start coming out in the way you relate to others, in a positive. So that's coming up around November, December 2020 this year. Another thing, around about the beginning of lockdown in March, this green one, we call the progressed moon. And it was right up here conjuncting your natal Chiron. And I imagine that would have given you a maturity, a growth spurt, a sense of safety. Sometime around March, you felt safe that you got your ideas out. But it might not be till this progressed moon moves up to this point in, what's that, 5, 6, in about 10 months, which I think that's around July, August next year, 2021. I imagine around that time, the collaborations and whatever was activated here, you can see it more clearly. There may be, like I said, collaborations and partnerships that come up, that materialize at that time. We've also got transiting Uranus, who's really, you know, unpredictable, revolutionary, break things up and shake things up. Will also be transiting Chiron 2023. So from March 2023 to March 2024, there will also be surprise and shake-up about what's coming out with your expression. I imagine it's going to be more confidence. It's kind of controversial. Some of the stuff that ignites your passion is controversial. But I think that's going to be a positive thing. And really bring out these resources that you have up here in this 12th house. So Lena, I hope that helps you understand. You're not going crazy when you say, I cry when I'm seen and I struggle to articulate myself. This is driving you, born to be seen. But it's breaking free of this karmic pattern and the wound of expressing. Because Mars is in Mercury in the 12th house. It has to go deep in, take its time, or risk being exposed. So find a way to mask that. Find a way to channel this kooky, unique vision that you have. And trust your unique voice. That's what Chiron had to do. He didn't like hanging out with other people, but he became, you know, one of our most famous and endearing and most loved medicine men, shaman, wise man, person you turn to when you need it. And he fostered other people to do that too. When you're feeling the overwhelm and the anxiety that comes up with the 12th house because it's so loose and nebulous, the idea is that you come back to Chiron, come back to your body and your voice. Try sound healing, singing, chanting, claiming yourself and your absolute birthright to be here. The more you find the cause that you're passionate about, the more you'll be able to come from this fantastic liberating point at the top of your chart. Good luck with that, Lena. And thanks for sending in the question because it's a really interesting read. If you'd like an astrology consultation, contact me through my website www.merrylkey.com. And if you'd like to learn tarot or other mystery school topics, find me at Teachable, my mystery school.